Okay, welcome everyone to our first Dome Talk in Brussels. Today we are discussing citizen participation, and in general we use the Dome to travel through Europe and to talk about topics concerning Europe. So a few practical things that's very important. We are filming all the things that we're discussing. If you have a problem with that, please let me know. Then we can make sure that you're not on the video or you're cut out. And also very important, talk into the microphone. As you can hear, it doesn't make my voice any louder, but it does make my voice louder on the video. So it's very important that people talk within the microphones. So I wanted to start actually with a very simple question. What is citizen participation? What is citizen participation? What do we mean by it? So, yeah. Do you want to start?
Okay. So, for citizen participation, we can mean all what is about, let's say, involving citizens in the policy-making process of the European Union. So it has been, let's say, an effort that the European Union has started to do more or less 20 years ago when they realized that there was a democracy deficit. So it's about making the European Union more democratic in the input side. So let's, in terms of citizen involvement in the actual processes of the European Union, I would say like that.
Nice. Okay, let's make a round.
Yeah, no, actually, if I can add something on top of what Giordano said, I would go for an holistic perspective and take also the fact that in order to participate, citizens have first to actually care about Europe. So it can entail also the process of creating an European identity and of creating a focus out of the EU bubble on what is going on in Brussels, and this could be done also through the media, for example.
Nice.
Perhaps you want to say something also about what is a citizen in Europe?
Yes, so this fantastic project idea of a dome replicates a bit also the challenges of European citizens' participation in Europe, I think. There are a lot of citizens around, but not many of them inside our public sphere. We call them citizens, but can we actually call them citizens if they're not participating, and in participating, defending and expanding their rights? We have challenges hearing each other because of all the noise that comes from other public spheres, etc. In addition to everything that's been said here, maybe I would just add a couple of dimensions. So yes, citizen participation in the EU means that citizens also have an input in their demands, grievances, policy ideas are also figured in the policy making process at the EU level, but citizen participation extends also beyond that. Citizen participation does not have to go through regular channels, so when you vote for the European Parliament or when you participate in a citizens dialogue initiated by the Commission, you're participating as a citizen, but let's also say it's important to emphasize that you're also being an active citizen when you're protesting on the street, when you're doing all kinds of different alternatives campaigns, sometimes supporting the EU, but sometimes also criticizing the EU. So these are all different facets of citizen participation in Europe. Yep.
Nice.
Yes, I would like only to add about what we were saying about the democratic deficit that the European is suffering from, about concerning the involvement of citizens. I think that there are also new emerging political forces, new political figures that maybe can contribute to a more involvement of citizens at all levels, starting from the local level, the national, and also the European level. And I'm referring to all these new transnational parties that are emerging, and I think that can be a great contribution to the lack of, the missing link, the weak link between the citizens and the EU institutions.
So how do you think this can exactly form this link, these transnational parties?
Yes, because what these parties have in common, for example, just to mention one, PACE, which is the Parti des Citoyens Européens, or VOLT, they are trying to engage people at local level, covering all the European political network. So you start from the local level, arriving to the European one. So I think that this can be, under the political point of view, a way to involve citizens in the European project. Yes.
Nice, thank you. So we've just talked shortly about these transnational parties and how they can increase citizen participation. Do you guys have other ideas about how citizen participation can be increased, and when it's necessary, of course? Would you like to start?
Sure. So one obvious candidate is the European Citizens Initiative. This event today was organized as a preparatory event for the ECI Day, which is happening tomorrow. And it's a traditional day where the ECI and its development is discussed. It's a way of citizen participation, but it hasn't really been working as much as people hoped it would. You know, it takes a lot of energy for gathering over 1 million citizens, which is necessary for an ECI to be effective and successful, and then hopefully get a response from the Commission saying, yes, we want to take up the idea from the initiative and turn it into a new law. So it's a possible way of participating, but there's still a lot to be done on making it known to Europeans. They usually don't, not even everyone in the EU bubble is aware of what it is, and then making it attractive to sign. Yeah, enough for now.
Yeah, actually, I totally agree with that. So I would like just to add a thing. Before the effort to actually make the European Citizen Initiative easier and also more, let's say, known in the European sphere, let's say, it's important before to make a big work in terms of European public sphere, because the problem is that the media landscape of the European Union is still completely fragmented, and there is no actual common ground on which the European citizen can gather together and discuss. So I think that it's a very difficult point, but it's also an effort that has to be undertaken by the European Union. Otherwise, it's not going to be done, I think, by the national member states, because it's not in their interest to create a European public sphere. So if the European Union wants to progress on this thing, I think that before it has to make a lot of efforts in the communication side.
Do you know how exactly this ground can be formed?
Sorry?
Do you know how this public sphere can be formed? Do you have some ideas?
Let's say that it's rather easy now to say the digital, but we have to push the digital side, because I don't see many opportunities in the let's say traditional media side. It's not easy to create media that are directed to all citizens because of obvious reason. Maybe with the digital it can be perceived as something innovative, and it can be more appealing to European citizens to participate. So I think it should be done with new technologies instead of with let's say, I don't know, European television. I don't know if that's the best way, but if I had an answer, I wouldn't be here researching.
Yes, for sure.
On the issue of ECI and its communication, just as a reminder, the Commission finally launched the ECI information campaign last year, which is planned to take place in the next 3 years, covering 27 member states. So the delegations of the EU in each, of the Commission in Parliament in each member state are responsible to have a communication strategy designed for each member state on, publicizing what an ECI is and how it works. And this is super late and super outdated. The Commission should have done this in 2012 already, but they are doing it now, and it's the first step in this communication campaign that you spoke about.
Something that you want to say?
Yeah, I don't know how this could implemented, but there is a huge lack of education. I, for example, was able to go through in Italy through all my career doing a bachelor and a master that without having a single word on the European Union and how does it work. I made a course here at the VUB in order to get to be updated at 27. This is something that, it is my fault as well, but it is fault also of the educational system that we have. How can I be a good citizen and participate if I don't even know how the European Union works? And it's not that simple that everybody would go on Wikipedia in 2 minutes. Like you need a course, you need lesson, you need a professor that is going to give you.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. The problem, I don't know, it's an open question, but I think the problem with that is that the education is a super delicate topic. The European Union, the member states don't want to give up to the supranationalist power the capacity to implement an educational program. So again, without the effort of the member states in this, we are not gonna progressing further, I think. I completely agree with you that without an educational effort, we are not gonna reach the target. But it's necessary that the member states agree all together that if they want to go on with the European project, they have to implement an educational program within the European project. Otherwise, we are going to stay fragmented and we are going to go on complaining about the European Union, each member states. So, but it's an open question. I'm not sure, and also I don't know how to fix it, because in the end, the member states, they get their power from the people, and it's a spiral of if you don't get that initiative from the people in your member states, you are not going to have the power to go to Brussels and try to change. So not easy.
But at the same time, Giordano, I don't see how anybody could oppose to having a European law level on a simple level for people that are going to vote. Like 16 years old should all go through a basic course of how the EU is working. Like, why a member state should say no?
Because they care about their national background more than
Could you talk in the microphone?
Sorry. Because maybe they care more about their national background and they are scared to make their citizen go further in the integration process, because then they cannot, let's say, bad word, but they cannot control anymore what's going on with their education in their state. It's a big step. I can understand that it's brave for a member state to give up some of their educational system. It has to be done, but it's not automatic. I can understand, but
did you want to?
No. You can go further.
Thank you. So, on the matter of education, yes, it's mostly left to the member states. It's not an EU competence. But I'm sure there have been initiatives, and there should be much more of them, coming also from citizens, trying to persuade their governments to take up, the open method of coordination among member states, to encourage them to introduce the EU citizen education into the national curricula if it doesn't already, because this is uneven. Some countries have it, some countries don't. You even have some countries outside of the EU among candidates for EU membership who have obligatory couple of lessons in a year in the curricula for students about the EU, and then you don't have it in Italy. So that's one thing, and the other thing is that connecting that issue with the ECI, 2 years ago there was an ECI organized by AEG, so the students in Europe were organizing an ECI on introducing European citizenship education in Europe. And so this would have been a fantastic chance to start this with a big bang from Brussels. And they managed to collect a really meager amount of signatures. I'm talking about a couple of thousand. I think I would have to check again for the exact number. But you see, that's a good idea was disqualified in a way because the signature organization was not as successful as you'd think, even though I'm sure that if they had a different signature collection strategy, it could have had much more citizens, because I think there will be a lot of interest for such an education in the EU. So we have to be careful when we use the ECI to not waste that opportunity on an important topic, and to really collect as many signatures as we can. And then you never use an ECI alone. You use it as an agenda setting tool, as a campaigning tool for doing other kinds of efforts to encourage states, Brussels, whatever. And yeah, maybe with a few years of break, a new ECI on citizen education in Europe can be initiated.
Nice. So about the first thing you said, you were talking about that we need an own, like it also needs to go from bottom up, not only from top down.
Oh yes.
Is there, like, a question to everyone, is there a way to promote this, or is this something that really has to come from the citizens, that there's no control, so to say, over how this bottom up can be stimulated? Because it's of course a hard question. How can things come bottom up if they don't do by themselves, so to say?
Yeah, let's try to answer. Of course, I think that it should be something that happens in a simultaneous way, that, as we were saying in the discourse of the lack of education, so in the elementary schools, but also in the high schools. So if education, there is a lack of education, so if there is a lack of a movement from the top, of course it is more difficult to have citizens that gather from out of the blue. I mean, that they get interest in something they at the start they do not know. So I think that it is important to have a top-down, I don't know how to say in English, stimulus or a spur, sort of spur. So it is important to give also the means, economic means, I don't know, even the places where citizens and young people can gather to talk about the European Union. So at the moment, just to return to what I was saying before, maybe political parties in this way that can help to make people gather around European issues. So it should be at the same time bottom up, bottom logic, and top down.
Would you say that there is no bottom-up initiatives right now?
I would not say there's not bottom-up initiatives. You're very right. There are a lot of bottom-up initiatives, especially if you look at the ECIs that have been. There have been a few, and also a few that have been successful. And these are important bottom-up initiatives. But I think if we are talking about what can we do about citizen participation in the EU, it's very important to think, okay, how much things are coming from bottom-up and how much things are from top-down, that they're actually changing things. And then I think we need to see if there's a way that we can make the things that are coming from bottom up actually successful and actually having an effect in the overall parliament, in the overall EU. Because me personally, like, I'm also a citizen in Europe, and I often have the feeling like Europe is so big and there's so little I can change about these things. So So if I can answer my own question a little bit, I have the idea there should be more ways to allow bottom-up initiatives to actually reach the parliament, and the ECI is a very important example of that, but I think there could be more, or like the ECI can also be changed in several ways that makes it more, for example, what you're saying with the collection system, it should be more fluent and more a better way of allowing these bottom-up projects to actually reach the parliament.
Can I ask an open question to all of you, because it's a thing I'm struggling to understand. So, why do you think that in the member state the issue about citizen participation is not that big? I mean, I can talk about my country, which is Italy, is not on the top of the agenda at all. The need for citizen participation, and why is it so important now for the European Union? Maybe I try to give an answer. It's because we have the democratic deficit. So maybe fixing that democratic deficit would, let's say, how can I say, would bring down that need so hard from citizen participation. Because I mean, it's very true that it's important that citizens take part, but it's also true that it's super difficult in a 500 million continent to really find ways to engage citizens. And I'm not against at all, but maybe we can also work with a two-sided approach. Of course, we can try to improve the way to engage citizens, but also to actually make the system, the institutional system, work more democratically. Something has already been done, but maybe it can be improved further. And then I wanted to ask another thing. So, in the member states, when there is a protest, as you said, that is citizen participation, and it has an effect. I mean, we have seen in our history that manifestation have had an effect. Now we see that there are manifestations at the European level, for instance about the climate. Every Friday around the streets people go on the streets. So I think that could be a chance to take, I mean, to try to transform that energy into something that has effect on the policy level. But I'm wondering, how should we take the? I mean, yeah, it's an open question, but I think it's a chance we have to take now, because we have protests at the European
now it's
level.
Happening, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wait, so the topic was how to bring bottom-up initiatives, how to give them a voice.
And you, of course, can also answer his question.
And then the two questions you asked. Well, ECI is one thing, but it's not the panacea. It's not going to save all of our problems. Protests are one thing, but they're also not the panacea. And the whole thing is just to keep momentum and connect all these different forms of struggles of citizens into something that can have a cumulative outcome. So you organize an ECI, you join protests, you're solidary with protests of different organizations than yours, because if you help them, they will help you. If you promote their cause, they will feel obliged morally to promote your cause. And then for me, the biggest midterm challenge is trying to change the paradigm of what it means to be political in Europe for citizens and politicians, meaning that we live in an increasingly interconnected world in which no thing can be solved just in a national arena, which means that we need to be transnationalized as citizens, as democracies, as public spheres. Anything from migration to climate change to pollution, etc. These are all transnational problems. We demand transnational solutions, and so a lot of these things exist, and people are increasingly realizing them. But none of it reaches the minds of other people in other member states, because it's not a sexy thing to promote through media or internet, and often these voices remain hushed and silent beyond the border of a certain nation. One way of doing it, and there is now an increasing number of projects of which your dome is part, is to connect different fragmented, isolated struggles across borders and give them a chance to be visible in Brussels, for example. One such project is something that the foundation we come from is involved with, the ESID Foundation in Brussels, and it is the European Trans-Europa Caravans project. In the run-up to the European elections, we'll have 20 young, dedicated European citizens with 5 different caravan routes in 15 member states, going around connecting different struggles on their routes, giving them a voice via our media partners online and in Brussels, and trying to find common grounds between them so they can then join up forces and act together transnationally. That's one way of making this week's horizontal link between different struggles stronger. Yeah.
Nice. So I have one more question. It's a little bit related to what you said before. You were talking about we need to update our technology in Europe in order to increase citizen participation. And there's been a lot of talks, especially by certain parties, about e-democracy and about stimulating e-democracy. What do you guys think about that? And is this something that will help or something that will only complicate things? What is your idea on that? Especially in relation to citizen participation, of course. It's a hard question.
Democracy. Direct electronic democracy.
Yes, exactly.
Actually, we have an example in Italy and it's not working that well.
What is it exactly?
So, the example is the 5-star movement, which is currently the biggest movement in Italy in terms of share about voters. In the last election, they got 33%, so they have a voice. And this movement started as a meetup movement from the bottom up, and it was supposed to be a movement in which all the citizens involved and all the citizens registered on the platform might have actually had a voice through online participation about the decision and so on. The problem is again that it's so easy to manipulate it. Because the platform is not public, the platform is private. So there are private actors behind. Actually, the platform belongs to a private company which does digital marketing. So it really belongs to a few persons who have a vision, and those persons they have been able to impose their vision, and I don't think that it has been a very open and free process, at least in my opinion. The point again is education, because it's so easy to manipulate people. But we are talking again, it's a spiral. We are talking again about the same topic. Like it's bad to say that you have to educate people. It seems paternalistic, but if people don't have the basic, the medium capacity of understanding how the things go, they are easily trapped in those things. And direct democracy can be, for me, a bit tricky. I would go more for rather than direct democracy, I would go more for boosting the discussion, to make those discussions more appealing, to give them space, so to make them more, as you said, to make them more sexy. I would start from that before giving the citizen the voice, because then there is the risk that if you give the citizen the voice without them understanding, they are easily manipulatable. So I talk too much, sorry.
No.
I totally agree.
Is there anyone who wants to add something?
I would just say that yes, you're right. There's inherent dangers with e-democracy that we need to be aware of, but those should not disencourage us to take advantage of technologies to connect citizens. One danger is the susceptibility to manipulation and who actually owns the technology and the software that uses this, because that can put a different light on everything. But another thing is that, just to say that, internet is colorblind. You can use it for good things or bad. You can be a Jedi or Darth Vader, and it just depends on knowing how to do it. But it can bridge the gap between citizens and institutions. This is working very well in Baltic states. It's starting to work well for the EU as well. There is the other side of that medal as well, which is, if we settle with or get complacent and say, okay, as a click activist, I'm doing my citizen duty, and then, you click events and like things on Facebook and think you're being a good citizen. Not really. It's a part of it, but not yet. So yes. It's a complicated issue, but it's working, and the ECI, again, just to say it, is a very good case.
Yeah, can you hear me? Did you hear the last part of what he was saying? Would you mind repeating it a little bit?
Oh, but it's the last part. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's the last part.
The internet is... Okay, sure. The internet is colorblind and can be used for good and bad purposes, but I think it can bridge the gap between citizens and institutions. Sometimes the government will initiate building e-democracy tools such as participatory budgeting in local levels, or citizen petitions to get the government on a national or the ECI at the EU level, but then it's important for citizens to appropriate these tools and start using it as their own, and then it's no longer clear, is this a government initiative, is it a citizens initiative? It doesn't matter who starts it, it's important the citizens appropriate them as much as possible, on as many levels as possible, as often as possible, etc. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, I have one last question, and let's hope it's not too much of an open door, because I think you already mentioned it actually, but do we need to redefine our definition of a citizen in order to increase citizen participation in Europe? Would someone...
An answer there?
Very quickly, yes.
Yeah, as I said before, there is now European citizenship. I don't know in other member states, but I can assure you that most Italians are going to say, I'm an Italian citizen. Full stop. Most of them. So yes, I think we should redefine it in terms of not national citizenship, but a bigger level.
We are in agreement.
Nice. Okay, I think some people also have to go right now.
Yes, I'm gonna go.
Okay, thank you so much for joining.
Yeah.
It was really interesting discussions. Thank you a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
we have a second Dome Talk at 3, so if you're still interested, please join us again then when we're talking about climate change. Okay, thank you.
Do you mind if we take a group photo?
Heb jij uitgelegd dat dat naar het Europees Parlement gaat, wat er hier gezegd wordt?
Would you mind?
Nee, niet per se. Maar
Nee,
dat
dat
kan ik
zou
nog
goed
wel
zijn om dat te zeggen. Anders gaan de mensen misschien denken bij ons dat we overgewogen om te babbelen.
doen. Ja.
Kunt het nu misschien zijn?
Ja, ik doe naar de foto.
Does it work? Yeah.
Can we also take a picture with our phone maybe?
Sure. I can just.
If you get on this phone?
Wait. Great.
Okay, guys, one last thing. Maybe interesting to know, we're gonna collect all the information we get from these talks, and we're gonna create a future archive, and this archive we will present to the European Parliament after the summer break. So this, what you're saying here will also end up somewhere in the end, in the Parliament in the end. Nice. Okay, thank you for joining.